Okay. Om Sadashivasamaramabham Shankaracharya-madhyamam Asmadacharya-paryantam Vande Guru Paramparam. Okay. So we are stuck on that Prayana Kali, I think. Yeah.
From 10th verse.
Yeah. 9th also a little bit. 9th did we do completely? We touched upon it, right? Yeah.
9th, yeah. Yes.
9th.
Yeah, we did.
Okay. Because he was talking about what you meditate upon. Okay. It can be looked upon, meditation, dhyanam, is generally defined as Saguna Brahma Vishaye Manasa Vyaparaha. With respect to Saguna Brahman, what is Saguna Brahman? Brahman with all the qualities, meaning Ishvara, Manasa Vyapara, a mental activity. So from Manasa Puja onwards, everything can be meditation. Okay. And the same thing becomes Nididhyasanam if it is Nirguna Brahma Vishaye, Manasa Vyapara. Okay. Therefore, generally you will find Saguna and Nirguna is mixed up together. Because the understanding of one leads to the other. Like here, if you notice, Kavim Puranam Manushasitaram. Kavihi, all knowing. Puranam, ancient one. Meaning, right from the beginning of time, Ishvara is there. Anushasitaram, the cosmic order. Okay. But Anoho, Aniyan, etc., Mahato, Mahiyan, we saw it elaborately last time. Anoho, Aniyan, Mahato, Mahiyan will be the reality we are talking about. We saw this last time, isn't it? Smaller than the smallest. What is smaller than the smallest at that instant itself is limitlessness itself. Therefore, Anohaniyam, then Anusmaredya, contemplating on that. Sarvasya Dhataram, the sustenance of everything, the abiding factor, that which gives satta spurti to everything, that which lends its existence and consciousness to everything. Okay. Achintya Rupam, not an object of thought. Achintyam is not thinkable, but it is not an object. You cannot think about it as subject object. You can think about it only as I. Okay. Aditya Varnam, that which is of the nature of consciousness itself. Tamasa Parastad, beyond all darkness. Beyond all darkness, meaning there is no ignorance. For the Atma, there is no ignorance. For my mind, there is ignorance. Yeah. Our perception of the sun is hidden by the cloud. The sun is not hidden by the cloud. You see the cloud in the light of the sun. Similarly, you are objectifying your own ignorance. Therefore, your ignorance you are aware of. I, Atma, does not have ignorance. My mind has. That's why the knowledge has to be in the mind, not anywhere else. Okay. Why? Because the problem is in the mind. If you are thinking of leaving the mind behind and gaining some spiritual knowledge, forget it. It doesn't work. Yeah. It won't work. But is there some experience like that? Of course you can have it. Can blow your mind. That's a big deal about that. Yeah. Okay. That's not what we are after. We are after the recognition of what I am. Okay. Then he says, because remember the question was at the time of death. So he is coming back to that topic. And he is saying, Prayana kale manasa chalena bhaktya yukto yoga balena chaiva bhruvo madhye pranam avesha samyak satam param purusham upaiti divyam. Once you have contemplated on the reality long enough, okay, Then what? Then at the time of death, prayana kale, manasa achalena, by an unwavering mind. Why unwavering mind? Because there is a fight between the prana trying to get out of the body and your body trying to survive and keep it inside. See, this will always be there. Okay? Why? Because it's the natural instinct of the organism to survive. So the body will fight to survive, to live. But it's the time for the jiva to quit the body, then. So that's what you see, a little bit struggle happening there, in terms of breathing, etc. Unless a person is fully prepared to go and has accepted that totally. Such cases, it's effortless. If you are confronted to your death while you are living itself and come to peace with it. If you have come to peace with it, then, okay, yeah. He says, then what happens? Prayer. Manasa achalena bhaktya yuktaha, along with all the bhakti you have. This term bhakti is often comes in and people don't really get it. Okay. Maybe once I will talk elaborately on what bhakti is, but now, right now, for the time being, when you love another human being, you don't call it bhakti, do you? I have a lot of bhakti to my wife or my husband. You don't normally use that term. You say a lot of love for her. When the same love is there towards Ishvara, you call it bhakti. And bhakti or love always brings in a sense of identification, doesn't it? Look at your experience of love. Now, don't tell me people in this class don't know what love is about, okay? I'm sure everyone knows what love is about. कभी ना कभी तो प्यार किया रहेगा. If not already in love right now, sometime you must have been in love. So the greater the love, the greater the sense of identification. No? His problems are my problems, her problems are my problems, my joys are her joys. There's a sense of identification. It's always there. Okay. Now, with respect to Ishvara, it is not only an emotion, that emotion is in response to an understanding. Ishvara is cosmic order, minimum. It includes you in the whole thing. You are not separate from Ishvara. So that identification is more, because backed up with knowledge, not just a feeling. And also, recognition of the truth is total identification. In the Ramayana, Hanuman is supposed to be the Parama Bhakta. Why call him Parama Bhakta? Because absolute identification. That is not functional. Absolute identification is not functional. Understand this. Why? If your wife eats, will you feel satisfied? Or you have to eat to get free from hunger? I'm sure sometimes a woman would feel, I wish that was true. Because if I'm feeling hungry, I'll ask my husband to eat and I will be okay. And I will not put on weight. Functionally, it doesn't work like that. It doesn't work like that. Therefore, it's always a question of understanding. Absolute love, absolute identification, it's always a question of understanding, of cognition. That's why Hanuman is called Parama Bhakta, because he knew the Lord and he are one and the same. And he makes it very clear in that statement. Deha drishtya tu dasoham. From the standpoint of the body. You are the Lord and Master. I exist to serve. The original samurai spirit. I exist to serve. Deha drishtya. Jiva drishtya. As a jiva, Tvam amshakaha, I am part of you. You are the totality. I am the part. Vastu buddhya, from the standpoint of the reality, Tvamevaham, you and I are one and the same. Iti me nishchit matihi. This is my clear-cut understanding. No doubt about it. That's why he is Parama Bhakta. Okay, yeah. Of course, the seva he did too. Rama is also huge. That's a different thing. Okay, that's a different thing. In fact, Ramayana existed or it functioned because of Anjaneya. Yeah. That whole battle against this, all that could work out only because of Anjaneya. But anyway, that I will talk in the Ramayana session. Okay. Not here. Okay, not here. When I highlight some of those things. Okay. Therefore, bhaktya yuktaha. Along with that bhakti, that recognition, yoga balena chaiva, and the strength of your practice. Yoga balam is the strength of your practice here. The meditation that you have practiced, the contemplation that you have practiced. So it becomes very easy for the mind to contemplate. Because meditation or contemplation is a knack of being with yourself. It's a knack that grows on you. It's a knack that grows on you. What example can I give? Okay. Many of you may have learned how to ride a bicycle when you are young, at least. Even if you don't ride now. At least when you are young, you must have. I'm sure some of you are riding even now. Believe me, I never learned. I could handle any ocean going vessel, including those mini submarines and things like that. But bicycling I never learned. Okay. Anyway, that apart. How do you get balance on your bicycle? On your two-wheel cycle, how do you get your balance? Is it by pedaling? By pedaling, you are moving forward. By pedaling, you are not getting the balance. And how did you learn cycling? An older sibling, or a friend, older friend, or a parent or an uncle figure held the back of and said, come on, start pedaling. I don't know how to. You acting as though you know how to. And he's holding. And he's saying, okay, look straight. Don't look this side, that side. Don't lean this side or that side. Look straight and go. And after some time he leaves. And you tilt and you go. Did I not tell you not to go bend this side or that side? I didn't bend. The whole world bent. Now what can I do? But in time, with a few falls on the way, in time, the knack, balance is a knack, it grew on you. Similarly, meditation is a knack that grows on you with practice. You act as though you are meditating. Like you act how you are cycling, the same way. And in time it grows on you and you are very comfortable being with yourself. Very comfortable being with yourself. Therefore, yoga, that's what he means by yoga balam. Yoga balayana, you have the knack. You can command that peaceful mind, the contemplative mind at any time you want. Okay, yoga balayana chaiva. Bhruvo madhye pranam avesha samyak. And the prana is coming up because it has to quit the body. Therefore, bhruvo madhye. It's supposed to go from the top, okay, or from the third eye area, or from any of the apertures. This is a normal thinking. That's why when you take a body to a cremation, you always wait for this part to break open. When you're cremating a body. Why? Prana is left. Prana is left before that. If prana was living now, the character would be screaming at me. Macbeth humor, no? Yeah, learn to laugh at death. It's important. Yeah. So, bro, when the prana has come up, then what? And Satam Purusham Upayati Divyam. If this is how your prana leaves your body, you are in a contemplative frame of mind. You are thinking of the reality. Why? You have done that so many time of meditation you have done. Now this is for somebody who has not yet had the nishtha. If you have the nishtha, I am pure consciousness all the time. You don't need this. This is before you get that. Before it has become a complete fact of your life. It is more or less getting there. Then, if you live like this, he says, Upayati, Paramam Purusham Upayati. You become one with the total consciousness. There is no more rebirth, etc. for you. You are one with the consciousness itself. You died well. Okay, you died well. How? By recognizing there is neither birth nor death. That's how you die well. Okay. 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 Then he is summing up the whole teaching in the next verse. Very nicely said. It's a copy from the Kathopanishad. Without even acknowledging. Intellectual property rights का problem हो जाएगा. But that's not a problem for Krishna. Why? As Ishvara, he has revealed the Kathopanishad itself. Therefore, the intellectual property right is there with him. Okay. Therefore, he says, Yad aksharam veda vido vadanti, vishanti yad yatayaha vitaragaha, yad icchantaha brahmacharyam charanti, tatte padam sangrahena pravikshe. Om ityetat. That Om ityetat is not there in the verse here. It is there in the Kathopanishad. Okay. He says what? Yad aksharam veda vido vadanti. That aksharam, that syllable. Akshara meaning a syllable, an alphabet. No? Akshara abhyasa for children. Aksharaha. Aksharam also means naksharati iti. That which not decline in time. Therefore, yad aksharam, that which is indeclinable, timelessness. Why do you use that interpretation? Veda vidaha vadanti. Alphabet your kindergarten students will say. But what is it that what is aksharam that Veda vidaha vadanti? That aksharam Brahma, Vishanti yad yatayaha vitaraga. Yatayaha, sannyasinaha. Generally, yati means a sannyasi. Yati also means yatna shilavan, who has put adequate, appropriate efforts. By making a lot of efforts, you don't become a yati. Adequate and appropriate. You want to know the truth. So what is adequate and appropriate for that? Shravanam, listening to the truth. Mananam, reflecting upon it, answering your own doubts, etc. Challenging your understanding. Nididhyasanam, contemplation on the truth. Therefore, yatayaha, vitaragaha san, freed from their desires, etc. Why? Karma Yoga, they are led for a long time. Either they have fulfilled their desires and grown out of it, or they managed to grow out of it saying it's not worth it anymore. Either way, they have grown out of it. Of course, a pleasant way is to fulfill it and grow. That's a pleasant way. Be careful when you tell these things to your children, okay? This is not meant for kids. The easiest way of getting rid of a desire is to fulfill it. Tell that to your kids, you have had it. Therefore, yat yatayaha vitaragaha vishanti, they gain enter. Yadichantaha brahmacharyam charanti. Desiring what, you go and join an ashram as a brahmachari to learn. Okay. Brahmani yo charanti iti brahmachari. Brahma marge yo charanti. One who is seeking Brahman is called a brahmachari. Okay. Brahmachari is not just celibate. Remember, the rishis who revealed this knowledge was not celibate. They are all married people. Krishna and Arjuna both were much married people, right? Yeah, and the teacher and the student here, much married. So their brahmacharya will mean a certain amount of discipline with respect to enjoying anything. With the enjoyment of anything, there is a certain discipline. Like eating sweets, for example. There's a certain discipline. Why? Sweets are not meant to fill your stomach. Sweets are meant for your tongue. So eat accordingly. Simple as that, no? Don't tell this in Gujarat and Rajasthan. Why? I was called for Bhiksha there once. Swamiji, please come. I said, okay. Sadhu, you call for Bhiksha, you will go. And you went. They served a huge laddu, wheat laddu, and little bit sabji. That is supposed to be lunch. Okay, that is lunch. Huge laddu and little sabji along with it. Okay, ठीक है, साधु है, जो मिला खा लेगा. Okay. Yeah. Who says you can't eat like that? Once in a way. If you eat it like that, then you'll become diabetic capital of the world. Anyway, brahmacharya is a discipline in any enjoyment. Yeah. Including sexual enjoyment. Why not say it? Yeah, there's certain discipline. Not too much of sex. Swamiji, this is a bit difficult to understand. What do you mean not too much of it? I'm young. Correct? Married. Correct? So what if you are not married? You are ready for sex only after marriage. You are waiting for a certificate from the government or from your religious head or what? ये क्या बात है? Now, too much is when after you have had your experience, when you get up to step into the bathroom or to drink some water or something, you should not be feeling wobbly on your legs. If you feel wobbly, you have overindulged a bit. So now you decide. You decide what is too much for you. Yeah, these are the landmarks mentioned by our masters on this field. You won't find it in any book, okay? Don't try to look for it in any book. Nahi milega. These are all Guru Sishya. Karna Paramparaya, it goes off. All these. Because these are all small details of how you practice things, you know. So those are not hardly written down. It's all said. Now maybe if I write a book, I may mention it there. Yeah. Therefore, in that context, okay, brahmacharyam yadichantaha brahmacharyam charanti. Desiring what? People live a life of brahmacharya, of the discipline, etc. Okay. Tatte padam, that goal, that which is to be achieved. Sangrahena pravakshe, I will tell you in brief, in the briefest manner possible. What is that? Om ityeta Omkara. I think I have explained Om here before in this class, but just to, in case people have forgotten, because that must have been a long time ago, you know, because this class has been going on for a couple of years. So, you know, our ancients decided, ancient masters, what name to give to Ishvara. Vivek has a very caring mother. Huh? It's nice to see that. No, that's why I mentioned it. Don't worry, others have not seen it. Others are focusing on me. That's why I like you all to keep your video on, because it's nice for me to see all this, someone, an expression of care and all that. It's good to see that. Okay. Because the class has come home. You have not come for the class. So all these will become sidelights, which is fine, no problems. Okay. Now, what name to give Ishvara? Because a name stands for a form or a function, excluding all other things. No? Excluding other things. Therefore, if you give any particular name, then everything else is excluded. It's important. Supposing I am not saying anything, infinite are the possibilities. The moment I utter one thing, like say I say pen, all not pens are gone out, no? Book, table, chair, being, man, woman, dog, cat, this, that, whole world. It's reduced to pen. So if I use one name for Ishvara, nahi hota hai. Everything else will be left out. Like when you say Rama, what is the word that comes into your mind? Shiva doesn't come, Rama comes. No? That's what Kalidasa said when he wrote Raghuvamsha. Vagartha viva samprakto. As how the word and its meaning is joined together. Vagartha pratipatti, to make the meanings of the word clear. Jagata pitaro vande, I am prayed to the parents of the universe. Parvati Parmeshwaro. How they are together? Like word and meaning. Inseparable. So that's why I chant that even before I say the Ramayana. Because Kalidasa did that before he wrote Raghuvamsha. Raghuvamsha is a whole dynasty of Raghu, okay? 39 people before Rama. Rama was the 39th king in the Ishwaku dynasty. Another 30 followed him. Each one a hero. Each one a hero. Beautiful. I mean, they don't make people like that anymore. They don't make people like that anymore. Phenomenal. Therefore, even the great Kalidasa felt he needed God's grace to reveal the greatness of all these heroes. And fairly authentic work it is. Raghuvamsha. I may disagree with one or two points, but not more than that. Yeah. Certain things he used a poetic license, therefore okay. Anyway, that apart. Now don't ask me to do Raghuvamsha after Ramayana. No, Ramayana. Anyway, so one name, one. So they decided any one name is not possible. But all names are nothing but sounds. All sounds emanate at the gullet, end with the lips. Therefore, let us give a sound symbol for Ishvara. Purely phonetic sound, nothing else. Open your mouth and say the first one. From the gullet, start with the gullet. Close and say So between and all sounds are covered. What about a representative for those in between, where you have to make some prayatna with your face? So they picked up one. They could have picked up anyone. They picked up oo. So becomes om. When you say it fast, they phonetically coalesce together. Not Sandhi rules are dependent on phonetics actually. Okay, Sandhi rules are nothing but rules of phonetics. In fact, the study of the phonetics in the West got a flip when they got exposed to Sanskrit language. So, but don't say Om as Aum and things like that, okay? There are some masters who say that, that's foolish. Om is Om because they coalesce together. They are combined together. So, because of that, he says, therefore, Om became a word for Brahman, Ishvara. Because all names are covered there. Since all names are covered, it became a name for Ishvara. Then what about the reality which is formless, nameless? The silence from which the Om comes, the silence into which it dies down, as we saw in our meditation when we were doing the 6th chapter. So the silence stands for the reality. What in some books they will call Amatra Om. Just because if you are reading something, you better be aware of that. They call it Om without a Matra. Matra meaning a length of time. A length of time to say A is called a Matra. U. It's a Matra. Om. One Matra. So Amatra Om. Om without a Matra meaning Om without a sound. So that becomes Omkara, the standing up for the reality. Therefore he says the whole teaching is represented by Om. And Om is supposed to be a sound symbol, never written down. That's why whether it's in my logo or it is Vedic Wisdom Festival logos, you will never find Om there. Om is supposed to be a sound symbol, a pratika. A physical form is called a pratima. Like a murti is a pratima, a symbol of Ishvara, like Rama, the murti. Om is always supposed to be a pratika, a sound symbol, not supposed to be written down. Why? If you write it down, when you chant Om, what do you think of? That form, a funny oo form, you know. No. Om is supposed to be Ishvara. So when you say Om, Ishvara should be in your mind, not that form. That's why it was never made into a form. Later on, some champion did it, and now everyone does it, including many of the ashramas also. They'll have Om all over. And I was shocked when I went to Rishikesh ashram. Even our ashram in the temple they put. I said, what idiocy is this? Remove it. कौन सा गद्दा किया है? Then Swamiji, when we repaint it next time, we'll paint it over. I said, okay. Therefore, Om is the whole spiritual pursuit in India. Whatever people did, remember, in the name of spirituality in India, it's a huge thing going on. Huge. Okay. Somebody will be doing some japa, somebody will be doing some dhyanam, somebody will be standing on their head, somebody will be doing something else, somebody will be doing Ekadashi Vratam. Tomorrow is Ekadashi. I got a big forward how important Ekadashi is. Sadhus don't bother about Ekadashi. You know why? When you don't get food, that day is Ekadashi. When you go for Bhiksha, there are days you don't get Bhiksha. Hota hai. Arey, what? You are talking about ordinary sadhus like us. Adi Shankara himself, in Banaras of all places, he went around for Bhiksha and didn't get it. Can you imagine? Someone as well known as Adi Shankara not getting Bhiksha. So he walked into the Kashi Vishwanath temple, the old one, not the modern one, okay? Old one now is a mosque. And they say no, it is not over a temple. They call it Gyana Vyapi Mosque. Gyan Vyapi is an Urdu name or what? Or an Arabic name. All pervading knowledge you are talking about. Anyway. He walked in there and chanted the Annapurna Ashtakam. He composed the whole Stotram there because he didn't get food. Kashi, Puradikshari, etc. Then Bhiksham Dehi, Annapurneshwari. Yeah. Kripa Kari. All that's a beautiful sloka. Beautiful sloka. Yeah. Annapurna Stotram. Therefore, the day you don't get Bhiksha is Ekadashi for you. That's how the sadhus look at it. As it is, you're living on survival diet. I mean, in Rishikesh and things like that, not in Bombay. Bombay, you live like others' own self. Maid comes and cooks and all, that's okay. It's different. Yeah. So, the whole thing goes like that. So, all the religious pursuits that are going around, thousands of it, hundreds of different devatas worshipped, hundreds of different types of pujas going on, all that. What is the ultimate purpose of the whole thing? Jnane parisamapyate. It all has to end in understanding what Om is. Not different from you. The practitioners may not know it themselves, that this is the ultimate thing. Because most of the practices, when you say practice, it's a discipline, it is meant to prepare your mind. Understand this. Any practice. Is meant to get your mind ready to understand the truth. So it's a form of certain forms of discipline, etc. Which is good. Acha hai. So this discipline is what we call as spiritual practices. The people themselves may not know it. And because they don't know what they are after, sometimes this whole spiritual practice becomes a conditioning. Because you don't know, you're doing it blindly. मेरा गुरु ने बोला है, बस इतना ही. I admire his Guru Bhakti, but थोड़ा understanding में जाता तो अच्छा हो जाता था. Yeah, it will become better. Yeah. So, it's first supposed to end in what? Self-knowledge. That means if I had done lots of practices before, and now I have come to Vedanta, and you find the practices are taking so much of your time, it's okay to cut it down. It's okay to cut it down. भाई कितना करेगा? How much will you do? I'm not talking of those people who spend 15 minutes doing some japa, etc. every day. I'm talking of people who are spending 3 hours on it every day, okay? And there are people who spend that 3 hours, 4 hours on it. I know that. In this class there are. Yeah. So they can cut it down a bit, okay? Make it at least half. Yeah. Why? Because it's fulfilled itself. God's grace is there with you. You come to the learning. Yeah. It has taken care of your mind. Aru rukshur munir yogam karma karanam uchyate. Yoga rudasya tasyeva shama karanam uchyate. Remember this verse? At least can you remember from which text it is? It's from the Gita, 6th chapter, okay? If you are desirous of mounting the horse of yoga, arurukshu, then karma is your means, because you have to master your mind. Yoga is mastering your mind. Therefore, karma, you have to do something to master. By sitting down quietly in one place, you are not going to master your mind. Do something. Some practice, some discipline. It's okay. Playing football is also good for mastering the mind. If you're really playing it, okay? Not just going around and kicking a ball around. No, really playing it. Putting your heart and soul into it. Then that can prepare your mind. Can give you a will, strong will, great discipline. Why? There are times when playing football, you'll feel like kicking the opponent rather than the ball. That time you hold yourself and say, oh no, ball, not game. So discipline, etc. will teach you. That's why Vivekananda said, I find a lot of spirituality in football. He's right. my mind, etc., came from a discipline of steel. Yeah, not puja part and things like that. Yeah. It's okay. Whatever gets your mind disciplined, do it. Karma karanam uchyate. And once you are yoga rudaha, you have mastered that discipline, etc., then shama karanam uchyate, quieten that mind down. Expose yourself to the teaching. You don't have to run around and do so much. Just keep it. Maintenance dose. Maintenance dose, we call it. Yeah, just to maintain your system. Yeah. It's like training to run a marathon. Believe me, if you don't run for 1 month, your stamina, everything is half. But you mean to say off season you're going to run a marathon every day? No, you will run 5 kilometers, not 42 kilometers. You will run 5-6 kilometers every day and keep it. Maintenance. It's called a maintenance dose. Yeah. So same way here. You already mastered your mind, etc. So cut it down a bit. Maintenance dose. Maintenance dose, okay? Yeah. Because you don't want to become completely slack and go back to the old ways of thinking and feeling. Yeah. So maintenance dose, that's enough. Therefore, all these practices. Yeah, known, not known, so many things. Yeah. So, when you see some of these practices, you wonder, why are they doing something like this? That's okay. They are doing it for a certain discipline. Yeah. If you look at the wealth of practices available in India, it is mind-boggling. Really, it's mind-boggling. I tried a few, experimenting with to see what it does to your system. But you can't practice everything. Nobody can. Nobody is meant to also. You pick up what works for you. With the help of your teacher, you pick up what works for you. For the modern mind, I would say a life of karma yoga and some japa dhyanam every day. And for your personal this, if you want to read some particular sloka or stotram or something like that, both ho gaya. Both ho gaya. Or a small puja that you are doing, lighting the lamp and saying, that's it. Enough. Yeah. But all that is meant for what? Understanding the truth. Nothing else. Yeah. Therefore, that's why he says, okay, this is what? All the spiritual practices are meant to lead you to understanding Brahma Atma, Brahmaneva Atma, Brahma Atma. Aham Atma Swarupaha, Chaitanya Swarupaha. That's all. Like what happened to Batman. You know what happened to Batman? No. You all know what Batman is, no? Batman Robin from the comic strip, DC Comics. He came to India and read the Upanishads. Then he dropped B from his name. I am Atman, not Batman. Okay? Somebody forwarded it to me, I thought it's a good one. Okay. All right. Then what do? Okay. Then he is giving you a few tips for contemplation. Okay. Sarvadvarani samyamya mano hrudi nirudhya cha मूर्धन्याधाय आत्मनः प्राणम आस्थितो योग धारणम ओमित्येकाक्षरं ब्रह्म व्याहरन् मामनुस्मरन् यप्रयाति त्यजन् देहं स याति परमां गतिम्. Okay. Sarvadvarani, all the gates of the body, eyes, ears, nose, etc. From where the world enters you, you act in the world. All of them. Put your shutters down. Lockdown, have a lockdown. Okay. New terms enter teaching like this. It's a lockdown now. So you lock down. Everything shutters down. And where is your mind? Usually people keep shut down this thing and they are sitting inside with a crack open to see whether anybody is coming and knocking. They knock, they will open. And so here you knock, nobody open, but your mind be Hridi, mind centered on yourself. Where is the mind? Not going here and there. Mind centered on yourself. Okay. Hridi Niruddhya. Important. Important. Why? Because meditation is a mental activity. Na? What is that? What Kabir said? Mala to karame fire. The mala is being rotated. Jeeb fire mukmahi. Your tongue is saying Om Namah Shivaya, Om Namah Shivaya, whatever. Saying. Manava to chahod se fire. Your mind is going all over. Yeh to sumaran nahi. This is not contemplation. Okay, this is not contemplation. Yeah. Therefore, he says, Manas Hridi Niruddhya, centered on yourself. Mind kept quietly on yourself. Murdhinyadhaya Atmanaha. With the breath on the top of your head, he says. Now, how do you do that? Okay. Atmanaha here refers to your breath. Okay. Murdhanya adhaya. Atmanaha pranam. Atmanaha pranam murdhanya adhaya. This is a yogic practice which I am not going to teach you all online. Okay. You all can go mad with this. If it is not done properly, I'm not joking. If it is not done properly, you can go crazy. Okay. By pranam, you don't mean the breath. You mean your energy rising upwards. Okay. That's why, first of all, most of us are not familiar with the energy part of it. We don't feel the energy. Okay. It's easy to feel the energy. Especially when you have a strong emotion. Work yourself up into anger. Think of something that makes you angry. And then shift focus to see what you're feeling in your body. That is the energy. Yeah. So the energy has to be shifted upwards. That's a part of a yogic practice. Okay, but not easy. And you have to do it very carefully. After the lockdown is over, if anyone wants to do it one-on-one, I'll teach you all how to do it. Okay, yeah. It involves some practice and things like that. But otherwise, it's a dangerous practice. And if you are going to take up the practice, you'll have to report to me once a week what's happening to you. Yeah. And if anything goes wrong, better call me immediately. Because you can feel dizzy, you can feel things going haywire, all that you can feel. Yeah. Because there is one nerve, the vagus nerve, which goes and it goes right up to the stomach. Sometimes when you take the energy, etc., that nerve can get stimulated. Then you will feel giddy. You will be walking like a drunken monk. Okay. What is a drunken monk? A monk with a lot of old monk in him. Okay. So you will, and then you will feel nauseated, you will feel like throwing up, etc., just because it went off here and there. So be very careful with these practices. Okay. Yeah. Ideally, you have to find a good teacher who can do this energy work for you and do it. Okay. Otherwise, it can end in a big mess. Okay. But now this is a practice. This will naturally come to a small level, to an optimum level when you are contemplating. So do a lot of japa dhyanam, forget about this prana moving upwards. What is necessary will automatically come. More than that, not necessary. We can take a lot of it up. Then your third eye will open up and you will get intuition, this, that, all that stuff will be there. Yeah, all that thing will be there. But even without that, okay, even without that, okay, even without that, what is optimum level necessary will come. Okay, yeah. Therefore, pranam asitaha and asitaha yoga dharanam. In that single pointed yoga, in that contemplative mind, you are remaining there. All right, you have got that contemplativeness, the silence, etc. You have got. Then what do you do? Om ityekaksharam brahma vyaharan mana anusmaran. In that silent mind, Om ityekaksharam brahma. Bring in ideas of that Omkara, Brahman. Iti anusmaran. How do you bring that? You don't start chanting Om, Om, Om. You don't bring. You take a word. What is Om? Pure consciousness. That silent awareness. You use that word. Like how we have done in our practice. Go back and listen to those recordings if you want. It's all put up. Okay? That silence awareness I am. That is using Omkara. The content of Omkara. When you say Om, remember Om stands for Brahman. Therefore you are using Brahman. That means you are using words that will help you understand. Whichever word help you understand the best, use that word. Shuddham Chaitanyam, free from all guilt, hurt, pain, everything. Pure consciousness. You bring in that. Quietening your mind is only a halfway to meditation. In that quiet mind, you put in all these things. Okay. Yaprayati tyajan deham. Such a person, okay. Such a person says, tyajan deham. If he gives up the body. Not necessarily sitting in meditation. But he has done enough contemplation in his life, it has become a fact of his life now, or her life. Then, tyajan deham, you give up the body, what happens? Sayati paramam gatim. The absolute gati, known as moksha, being one with the pure consciousness, he gains. Because different wise people have gone differently. Yeah, the best example I like to give is, and some people have gone sitting in meditation also. I'll give two examples. There was a sadhu in Rishikesh. He was staying in Kailas ashram. And they allowed him to stay in Kailas ashram. Not that he had any great learning or he would attend all the classes or anything. But thoda dhyan bhin karta tha. All sadhus do this. Some contemplation, some meditation, all sadhus will do. Japa dhyanam everyone will do. Nobody knew what his real name was. Like how I have a surname Saraswati. He had a surname Giri. My first name is Brahmavedananda. His first name nobody remembered. Because he was as black as a crow. Therefore, people would call him Kaligiri. Short. Rishikesh is very famous for his short forms. Okay. Yeah. So he was called Kaligiri. So everyone knew him as Kaligiri. His job was to go and distribute invitations for Bhandara in Kailas ashram to the other ashrams. That is his job. And sometimes he would come to me also. Though I would get my invitation differently, he will come to me. स्वामी जी आप भी आइए भंडारा को. हाँ जरूर आएगी. एक बात पूछूं? हाँ. स्वामी जी जो गुरुदक्षिणा मिलता है ना, आधा हमको देगा? हाँ आधा दे देगा. Why? Because he has to buy some soap, this, that, he is short of money, what to do? They live on Bhiksha, so the money that comes to you comes like this. So I would happily give him the Guru Dakshina. No problems. What about you? आ जाएगा बाबा किधर से. In our ashram, a lot of people come, so we get Guru Dakshina often, not a problem. I'm talking about those days, okay? When there are only 20 rooms in the ashram. Now there's 100 rooms. Okay, one day we'll have a camp there. Okay. So, this was a man. Then, when he became old, something happened in his intestines, we don't know what, because those days hospitals were not there. Nowadays there are a couple of hospitals. There was only one hospital Ramakrishna Mission used to run in Haridwar. So we took him there. He was bleeding from the stomach. Maybe some piles or something. Or some perforation of the intestine. Something must have happened. But the doctors gave up hope. He said, nothing can be done. Take him back. Let him die in peace. So Kaligiri heard this. So we brought him back to the ashram. He decided, बस ध्यान में बैठो और निकल जाओ. And he went like that. He sat on the seat of meditation bleeding, but went. Bhruvo, Madhye, all that. He did it. He went well. As opposed to that, I'll give you the example of another Mahatma, whom I knew very well. I was very fond of him. I revered him. I had a lot of respect and love for him. I learned from him a huge amount. Not only about Vedanta, about how greatness has to lie lightly on your shoulders. That's a big lesson he taught in his life. This man, Swami Taranandagiri, whom Puja Swamiji also had learnt from. He recognized his time was up. So after lunch he said, which is very unusual for him. He's a man of very fixed practices in his life. After lunch he said, एक चाय पिला देना जरा. We are surprised. Swamiji asking for tea after lunch. He never does that. For him, tea time is 2:30 in the afternoon, fixed. We would give him a cup of tea sharp at 2:30. And this is only 12 o'clock, 12:30. एक चाय पिला देना. So he had that cup of tea. Then when we went at 2:30 to ask him whether he wanted another cup of tea, he is gone. This was one for the road. He loved tea. This is one for the road. Why? For him, he didn't have to sit in meditation, etc. He was sitting in his easy chair. Why? Because for him it is a fact of life. Brahman was a fact of his life. He was Brahman. That's what he taught. That's what he was. So he went differently. He went differently. Yeah. Yeah, I was there for a samadhi and it was just a week after I took sannyasa. I had taken my students to him. Then I said, Swamiji, I'm coming again here with a group in September. I'll meet you then. He said, agar hum रहेगा तो. He said that. He gave me an indication. Not there. So that day of his samadhi, I was coming down to Delhi to come to Bombay. So I stopped at this place and this is what happened. I was lucky to be there for his samadhi. And then of course I cancelled that Delhi thing and did this whole samadhi thing. So what I'm trying to say is, if the reality is a fact of your life, it doesn't matter how you go. So rather than focusing how you're going to die, it's important to focus on how you're going to live. Yeah. You live in this knowledge, it doesn't matter how you die. Because you can't be dying away from the knowledge if you are living in the knowledge. Yeah. Yeah. What does it matter? You die of old age, you die in an earthquake, or you're carried away in a storm. क्या फर्क पड़ा? You are that pure consciousness anyway. Yeah. Brahmaham asmi iti. Once that knowledge is clear, what does it matter? Bhruva, Madhya, etc. doesn't matter. That matters for people who the knowledge is not yet clear. So how are you going to remember to do all this at your time of death? First of all, you have to know it is a time of death. And believe me, that's very difficult to predict. Up to now, in all my experience of astrologers, I know only one astrologer who could predict it with accuracy. And if you are asking me his name, forget it. I buried him in the Ganga before I came down. He already had a samadhi. Others can't predict. Otherwise, you'll be like that astrologer. who said at 4 o'clock today I am going to die, according to his calculation. So he went and lay down at 3:45. At 4:05 his friend walks in. Hey, what are you doing lying down at 4 o'clock? Don't you know I am dead? It will be like that. How do you know? So lead a contemplative life. Regular meditation, etc., to own up the knowledge. Exposure to the knowledge, owning it up in meditation, etc., as a regular practice. Then whenever it is time, let the Lord decide that. You are free from birth and death anyway. You are free from birth and death. There is neither birth nor death. Let the body drop. What does it matter? Okay. So that is the highlight there. Okay, there are some more verses on this, but it's a good place to stop. Okay. We'll meet again next week. Om Tat Sat.
Pranam Swamiji.